Today's Focus report comes to us from Afghanistan, where for girls playing a musical instrument could cost them their lives. Now, the Taliban considers music sinful and as such is forbidden by many Afghan families. For members of the female Zohra orchestra, though, giving up music simply isn't an option. The girls say they're determined to show another side of their country. Nicolas, Bertrand and Emerald Maxwell report. OK, let's have a chat.
These young women are risking death. Yet not one of them would hesitate for a second. Aged between 13 and 20 years old, they've chosen to play music. This is the Zohra Orchestra of Kabul, composed entirely of women. Playing music is still considered a deadly sin by the Taliban, and many Afghan families ban it. But these girls want to send a message to their country.
Just as my parents have allowed me to learn, other parents should also allow their daughters the freedom. And you have to explain to the people who don't want to, so that they understand.
NEGIN is the first female conductor in the history of the country. She wants to show a new side of Afghanistan.
And the people that outside of our country, that they think that we are just sitting in home, and like they're thinking that women in Afghanistan, they're just working at home. But no, we want to show to the people that we are working hard, and we want to show the peace to them, that we want peace and we want to improve.
But to get there, in probably one of the worst countries in the world to be a woman, they faced many challenges. All the girls in the Zohra Orchestra live here, an orphanage in the heart of Kabul. The girls wake up to music every day, and not just to classical. Half the girls here are orphans. The parents of the others are too poor to take care of them, like Medina.
I came here when I was 4 years old. Where I came from, there was no school and the economic situation was not good. That's why I came here, to study. And that meant I was also the youngest here when I arrived.
It's the same where I'm from. Girls don't have access to education, and girls are married off well before they become adults. My family was against that. So yes, I miss my family, but I have to study. I have to keep going.
Before going to school, the young women get together to have breakfast. PASHTANA RASUL, herself a former boarder, now runs the orphanage. The Taliban executed her father, who was a teacher, when she was a child. Today, she fights for her young charges.
The girls who are in their house, they are not allowed to talk even in front of their fathers, in front of their brothers. But here they learn that how to behave, how to be dependent, how to be powerful, because they are going to be educated person in the future, become teachers, become a doctor.
But the most dangerous part of the day is just after breakfast, on their way to school. It's a 15-minute walk, and fear hangs over them the whole way. The orphanage has 6 guards, some of whom are armed for the musicians' safety. On the way, they can't help but imagine the worst.
We could be kidnapped, or everything else that happens in Afghanistan. Acid attacks and suicide bombings.
And yet, they would never miss a day of class. Their courage and their music has taken them beyond the borders of Afghanistan. A few days later, here they are in New Delhi. The Zohra Orchestra has been invited to perform at a concert at one of the Indian capital's grand hotels. Before going on stage, they think about their families, who will probably never see them play.
My family had to face so many problems. Over and over the Taliban threatened them. They said, take your daughter out of music school or we'll kill you. But they stood firm and I'm here. I'm so happy. I'm living my dream.
30 young women have come to prove that their country is not just limited to 40 years of war, terrorism, or religious extremism. The musicians want to pave the way to a new peaceful Afghanistan. An Afghanistan where women and music can flourish.
All right, to talk more about our focus report, which, as you've just seen, came today from Afghanistan. Fahime Rabiol is a lecturer in negotiation and conflict management at Essex Business School. She also works at Tehran and Kabul universities, you were just telling me there. We saw in that report, for people living in Europe, the idea that you could risk your life for playing music would be very, very difficult to comprehend. Talk us through what life is like for young women in Afghanistan today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Actually, we cannot imagine in Europe that in another part of this globe, there are the people that in the morning they don't know if the evening they will come back home. So this is something in the background of your mind. So you cannot live with it, and it prevents you to leave. That's why this type of initiative, which is, I'm sure that thanks to the international community helps, and particularly United States for 15 years, has changed the mentality and improved and created this challenge for these girls and for the women to do the initiative like that.
I mean, I was going to come to that. For 15 years, obviously the US has been in the country.
And the international community.
And the international community, of course. How have things improved? I mean, are we seeing women in different domains of life more than we saw in the past?
Definitely.
Be it journalism, be it the army, be it police, for example.
Definitely. We first of all, the very, very key action in this country was the access to the education of the women and the girls. Now, from 8 million boys, there are 2.5 million girls who goes to school. This is not it is different ratio if you are in the large cities and if you are in the villages. From political point of view, the access of the women is increased notably. For example, in their parliament, there is 27% of the seats are for the women. If you compare it with France, in 2016, it was 16%. You have the women who are ambassador, minister, and they participate in the economy of the country. So it is and another point which is increased these type of initiatives is the media. The journalism is extremely important in this country with the different channels of television with a very, very great quality. And the last is Zan TV, Women TV, which has been created last year.
So some very positive changes that you're referring to. I mean, is it fair to say that a lot of that is happening in the larger cities? When it comes to more rural areas, there's still a lot of work to be done. What needs to be done in those areas to get them up to speed with the larger cities?
First of all, there is the problem of security. We have to face with this problem. The problem of the security prevents the girls to go to school because they have to walk a lot. Secondly, they are from the poor families, and the parents prefer that instead to take the risk to get married them very, very early. And sometimes they are so much poor that the girls before 12 years are a monnaie d'échange in order to pay a debt or to solve a conflict. All these things can be solved if we have the security and if there is a greater investment for the schools in the far regions.
So what you're saying is young girls in those rural areas are sometimes used as a kind of currency by their families, if you will.
Absolutely.
Right, in terms of the initiative that we saw in that report, the initiative of the female Zohra orchestra, what do you make of it? And are there similar initiatives that are ongoing in Afghanistan at the moment?
Absolutely. First of all, I would like to precise that their first concert was at Davos at the end of the International Economic Forum, where the great of this world were present. So they could present another image of Afghanistan that we are always receiving, like violence, terrorism, etc., etc. Secondly, there are the other initiative. What I have said, the creation of a Zan TV, women TV for the women and by women, it's extremely important. That bring education in some point toward them. There are the club of ski in Bamiyan, where the girls skiing. There are the club of cycling in Kabul. The marathon of Bamiyan gathered 200 girls with the boys last year. The girls make the skating, boxing, etc., etc.
Things which would have been unthinkable decades ago.
Yeah.
Okay, Fahimi Rabiul, very good to have you today with us on France.
Thank you very much for inviting me.